Powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to another edition of Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. People, these Minnesota Vikings are, the Minnesota Vikings pulled another one out of I don't know where to win today in Seattle, a place that hasn't always been kind to the Minnesota Vikings. They pulled one out today, 27-24. There were so many times in this game where things could have gone towards the Seattle Seahawks getting the dub, but it went towards the Minnesota Vikings. This team is so resilient. Sam Darnold finding Justin Jefferson in the end zone on that last possession, that last drive. What a heck of a throw, throwing a little, just showing a little bit of toughness after tweaking his ankle to be able to get out of the pocket, scramble a little bit, throw off one leg, and have that be a dime to Justin Jefferson. The Minnesota Vikings find a way to win 27-24. Sam Darnold, 22 of 35, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns. Aaron Jones carried the ball 18 times, 67 yards. I thought at times he ran really hard. Really helped the Vikings sustain some of those drives. If you looked early in the game at halftime, the Vikings had the time of possession almost doubled over the Seattle Seahawks. I think that really helped them flourish in the first half. They got Justin Jefferson, 10 catches, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns today. Jordan Addison caught a touchdown early, 5 for 35 yards today. Man, these Minnesota Vikings are finding a way to win. And this was a game where the defense didn't have its best game. But again, being at your best when your best is required, what Kevin O'Connell always says, that's essentially what this team is. Because the defense was a little bit of a sieve, especially in the second half. I mean, Geno Smith was carving him up. There were times where the Vikings really sold out on the blitz. The blitz couldn't get home, and Geno found a lot of space behind the blitz. But when the Minnesota Vikings defense needed to make a play at the end of that football game, they found a way to make the play and get the interception. Seattle Seahawks stats: Geno Smith threw the ball 43 times, had 31 completions, 314 yards for Geno, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They really had no running game. Kenneth Walker, 8 rushes for 31 yards, and there was nothing else really significant. Jackson Smith and Jigba had a game. Former Ohio State Buckeye, 8 receptions for 95 yards, and DK Metcalf had the 1 touchdown early, 3 catches for 57 yards. Sam Darnold, man, he is finding a way. He is making it extremely hard for the Minnesota Vikings to move on. I mean, it is crazy. He is continuing to make plays. This is the second time where he's gotten dinged up, where he could have very easily has gone out of the game. Nick Mullins is the backup, but yet he stays in there and shows his toughness. And not only does he show his toughness, but he finds a way to make a play. Now, keep in mind, here's what was really impressive about the game is that the Seattle Seahawks needed this game. They needed this game to make the playoffs, so they were playing hard. They were driving the ball hard. Their running game at times when they needed to get 2 to 3 yards to get a first down, they got that. And Geno Smith, when he needed to make throws, he made throws. But the Minnesota Vikings always had some sort of answer. I thought the Vikings had an opportunity during that game, man, to pull away. And then our offense just wasn't clicking. We had a couple of 1, 2, 3 and outs. We had a couple of opportunities to make some plays down the field. And then we got one of those self-inflicted, whether it was a false start, a holding call, something like that. But in the end, again, we just found a way to play. My one criticism of the Vikings, and I've been really consistent with this on the pod, is that they really don't seem to have that quick game. Like, we've got to help Sam Darnold, in my opinion, get the ball out of his hands a little bit quicker. My only thing is maybe KOC knows that that's not his strength, and maybe he knows that he tends to make crucial mistakes in those situations, so they stay away from those kind of plays. I remember in training camp, they were talking about Sam Darnold is great down the field in the vertical passing game, but it was the intermediate routes from wide receivers where he just wasn't as accurate. Those hitch routes, those drag routes across the field, he's just not accurate in those. So maybe, just maybe, that's the reason why we don't have a lot of those quick game type plays, the slants. Every now and then, KOC will sprinkle a screen in there. I saw a couple of screens today to Aaron Jones. I saw one screen to Jordan Addison. Didn't get us a lot of yards on those plays, but they were sprinkling them in. But again, on the offensive side of the ball, it was these long developing plays. I thought the defense, B-Flow, was trying to blitz. I saw a lot of blitz packages out there. But, where the Green Bay Packers exploited the Seattle Seahawks last week, the Minnesota Vikings just couldn't get home on the blitz. It was really, really perplexing. So I think we were leaving. The one thing you don't want to do is blitz so much where you leave your corners and your safeties on islands in the secondary. So then I think they went to a lot of zone blitzes, and that's where you saw a lot of room, and Geno Smith really, really took advantage of that. Harry the Hitman wasn't out there playing, so we really missed him, but I thought Theo did a really, really good job of coming in for him. And every time we needed to make a play, we seemed to come up with the play. Stephon Gilmore, I could tell he wasn't hobbling, and I believe he's healthy, but I don't know if you've ever had a hamstring pull. It really looked like he didn't want to exert himself so much where he popped that thing again. So I thought he was a little bit slow to the ball, but he made a big play down the stretch where he laid out. I think they were going to either Jackson Smith and Jigba or Metcalf across the middle, and he laid out and tipped the ball so they couldn't get that reception. I thought that was a big play for Stephon Gilmore. But again, when you add these little things up, wasn't the best game for the Minnesota Vikings, but it was one of those games where you had both teams fighting for something. You had the Minnesota Vikings looking at the Philadelphia Eagles losing today, fighting for that number one seed, and then you had the Seattle Seahawks who were fighting for a playoff spot. So you had two teams really, really playing hard, but the Minnesota Vikings come out on top. UP Nation, what are your thoughts about the game? Put it in the comments. This is another win. 13 wins on the season. The Minnesota Vikings are 13-2 right now. Unbelievable stretch for them. I couldn't have imagined this season in my wildest of imaginations, especially when you have a guy like Sam Darnold, and I keep saying it, he was on the scrap heap before the season started, and he is looking like an MVP this year in terms of making plays. Wasn't his best game of the season, but again, at the end of the day, when you cannot play your best game of the season, throw for 200-plus yards and 3 touchdowns, and then keep the turnovers to a minimum. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings, Sam Darnold's not turning the ball over. He had 0 interceptions again today. So in the last 4 games, he's thrown 1 interception. And again, have a great quarterback rate. This is turning into a really special season. So we're going to enjoy this one, but looking on the horizon, we got the Green Bay Packers coming into Minneapolis next week. That's going to be a huge game. They're fighting for something. They would like nothing better than to knock us off and not have us have the opportunity to get that number 1 seed. But everything is lining up. This team is a little bit different. This is one of those games where some of the Vikings teams in the past may have dropped this game because the Seattle Seahawks came with a lot of resilience today. They tried to get the win, but the Minnesota Vikings was a little bit stronger. What was the big reason why we won the game today? Was it Sam Darnold? Was it the time of possession in the running game? Do you give a lot of credit to KOC? Was it a big play at the end by the defense? Who was it? My vote goes to Sam Darnold. The guy made the plays when he needed to make the play. Also, you can't forget about Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson was absolutely phenomenal today for the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to be talking about this one all week. We got the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers next Sunday. That's a huge game, man. This was a game where if you are a Viking fan, you are extremely happy with this one. Minnesota Vikings, again, beating the Seattle Seahawks 27-24. Man, this is just absolutely fantastic. What a fun season it is for the Minnesota Vikings. Kudos to KOC, my coach of the year. Kudos to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, my executive of the year. And kudos to Brian Flores, who's my assistant coach of the year. I mean, it's a three-headed monster that the Minnesota Vikings organization has. And hopefully we can continue this, man, and make a run in the playoffs where the Vikings can really realize their dream of getting to that Super Bowl again and possibly winning one. Again, the Minnesota Vikings 27-24. This has been Unconventional Playbook. We will make sure to see you when we see you. Latrey, take us home.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm a man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am?